Welcome to Dental Business RX. Practice success in 30 minutes or less.
Thank you for calling ABC Dental.
If you had to think of something you could learn or something you could change about yourself that would improve treatment acceptance in your practice, what might that be? I know it's a bit of a loaded question, and I'm clarifying it because if I were to ask you what would have to change to improve treatment acceptance in your practice, most people would respond with something along the lines of more financing approvals or more new patients that are interested in oral health or something along these lines. And it's very easy to look, quote unquote, over there when trying to fix something. And I instead wanted to challenge you a bit by looking within, sort of one of those control what you can and don't worry about what you can't. And with that said, for many, when they're looking to get better at sales or treatment acceptance, they tend to focus on the words. What do you say when a patient says, I only want to do what my insurance covers? Or what do you say when a patient says, I want to think about it? Now, I don't want to say that this doesn't help. It can. Because knowing how to reply, especially when you take whatever that concept is and make it your own, can definitely help to quickly communicate a concept. For example, let's say you don't know what to say to a patient when they just want to have a tooth extracted and get a denture, right? And you talk to one of your colleagues and they say, what I tell a patient is I go, well, how would you feel about cutting off your forearm and putting on an artificial forearm? Something you take off and put back on. Well, that wouldn't be fun. Well, that's what a denture's like. And that sort of communicates that concept quickly to the patient so that they get it. Where they don't want to replace a tooth at all. They don't want a denture or anything. You go, okay, try standing on one leg. That's what happens when you pull a tooth and there's no other tooth for it to oppose. Whatever. You've heard these over the course of your career. Sure, they can help, but words in and of themselves have limited utility. And I say this because you and I could both present a treatment plan, say completely different things, and still close the case. So it's not the words. The words are not the senior most important thing. And look, there are a number of factors I could list that have bearing on case acceptance. Sales or closing, financial qualifications, the patient's attitude, their desire, things along those lines. And then, of course, there's the whole organizational side of sales. I've talked about it on the podcast before. But when it comes to the presentation process itself, there you are, there's the patient, whether you're in a consult room or you're in your operatory and your treatment coordinator's right there. What, in my mind, are the top 3 factors that affect how well you close or don't close cases? Well, for me, it's 3. The top 3 are, number 1 is communication skills, how good you are at communicating with somebody. Number 2 is the structure of the treatment plan presentation itself, what you cover first, what you cover second, etc. And number 3 is attitude, your attitude and any of the team members' attitudes involved in the process. Now, I've spoken about 1 and 2 quite a bit, communication skill and structure on the podcast. And here's my shameless plug. It's coming early. If the definitive answer to those, in my opinion, are the MGE communication and sales seminars. I'll put a link to them on the episode webpage. They just can't be beat. The average increase from a client coming to these is close to $300,000 the first year. These things just really, really, really work. And because this episode is going to either air before the end of 25 or right at the beginning of 26, one of the offers I wanted to extend to any of the listeners is if this is something you've been thinking about doing, these communication sales seminars, the price is going to increase in 2026, probably by about $1,000. So if you use the code RX2025, when you talk to one of my salespeople in the organization, if you use that code, they'll give you the 2025 price. Anyway, I wanted to make that shameless plug not too long. You want to make it the right length so you can't fast forward and can't rewind, so you have to listen to it. Anyway. Okay, so that leaves us with, we got communication and structure, but that leaves us with number 3, attitude for the owner doc and any staff involved in the process. And how you approach this process, your attitude, directly contributes to not only case acceptance, but the overall success of your practice. And the beautiful thing about this is changing your attitude, shifting your attitude can happen immediately. And a simple shift in this regard can boost your close rate literally overnight. And that happens to be what I want to talk about in this week's episode. My name is Jeff Blumberg, and I'm your host, and I've really been looking forward to this episode. My background, how did I start in the game? when I was done with my education is I started in sales, all right? And no, it was not during the Great Depression. Okay, I'm not that old. Anyway, all right, enough old jokes. My background's in sales, and sales can be super fun or super not fun if you don't know what you're doing or you're doing it wrong. Well, when I learned this information that I'll be sharing with you this week, it drastically changed how I approached selling. And sales at that point became easy. I became far more successful, and it became a lot more fun. It was enjoyable. And I've been able to leverage this same information as my career has progressed to not only keep my head on straight, but also to use as an executive. So what is this information? It's something called the Scale of Motivation, developed by L. Ron Hubbard. Again, if you're familiar with MGE, you know that we use the Hubbard Management System developed by Mr. Hubbard. It's an amazing system. It works incredibly. It consists of millions of words on every aspect of organization you could possibly conceive of, from sales, finance, personnel, organization, statistic management. I mean, I could go on. And the information, the way I want to share this information from this scale, it's directly from the article. I'm going to read from the article directly. It's a little bit more than I usually cover as far as information, but it's pretty intense. I want to make sure you get all of it so you can think with it. And then kind of stop and give you some insight into how I've been able to apply it, as well as how it works in a dental practice. So with that, I'm just going to jump right in. Forget the lead up. Let's just get into this so you can start thinking with this stuff. So he starts with this: money motivation. The weakest motivation is money. People and businesses that are motivated only by money are wobbly people. The scale of motivation from highest to the lowest is duty, highest; personal conviction, personal gain; money, lowest. Money is important in the world, but it is the grease on the machinery, not the motors. In a society which has lost its patriotism and pride, money will be found as a primary motivation. True, one is in trouble without money, and it is a crime in the eyes of the society to be without money. But one also needs dirt to stand on, and yet dirt cannot be said to be the primary motivation for living. So money is a tool, a gas tank. It is a means of getting something done. It is no valid end in itself. So now if we roll back to this scale, I'm done reading for now, and then I'm going to comment on it here. If we roll back to this scale, so we have duty at the top, then we have personal conviction, personal gain, then money. So let's look at what do we mean by duty. Duty is a commitment, right? Duty is doing what must be done. It's something that you feel you're responsible to do based on your values, your principles, your identity, your role, like as a doctor, your honor, etc., right? What's morally right, that's duty. That's the top, right? Then we have personal conviction. What's conviction? Conviction's a firmly held belief or opinion. Firmly held belief or opinion. It's a conviction. It's something that you hold to be true. Then we have gain, which is what you get, and then we have money. So we have duty as the top, personal conviction, personal gain, and then money. That's our scale. Now he goes on. Thus, this is from Mr. Hubbard again. Thus, an organization motivated only by money will eventually fail, for it depends more on the goodwill and personal conviction of the public than it does on cash. Thus, there will come about a barrier between a money-motivated organization and a public motivated by personal conviction or even personal gain. So let's explore this for a minute, because this has a lot to do with interpersonal relations. If I come into your practice as a patient, for whatever reason that might be, I might be in pain, I don't like how I look, I just want to, keep my teeth longer, etc., what would you say I am motivated by? Now, the average patient, where are they going to fall on this motivation scale? Are they going to be at duty or personal conviction? Sure, some are. Some feel it's their duty to keep their oral health in perfect condition. Some feel that they have a firmly held belief that keeping their teeth in great shape is a really good idea. And you can get people up to that point. What is the average new patient walking into your practice? Where are they motivated? Are they motivated by money? No, they're not in your practice to get dental work done because money. That's not what got them to go. What got them to go, for the most part, is personal gain. I'm in pain. I would like to get out of pain. I have a huge diastema and I want to get that fixed. I don't like how my front teeth look. I can't smile. I have to go to my daughter's wedding and it doesn't look good, etc. Personal gain. All right? So now I want you to look at what that patient's walking into. What is the motivation of who they are speaking to? And this will sneak up on you because as a doctor, you would go, of course, I'm motivated by duty and personal conviction. But now I want to give you a little bit of a different take on this for a second. And I'm not doing this in a way to, give somebody a hard time or whatever, but I want you to think with this. So let's say I join every plan I can possibly join because, I need to make sure I make money, number one. And when I sit down with a patient, if they need a lot of work, I don't want to freak them out and make them run away, so I don't tell them everything that they need. Because, if I tell them they need all this treatment, they're just going to freak out and run away. Or I'm embarrassed to tell them what they need, or I feel like it's really not my place, or they're going to think I'm only about the money, etc. So what am I most worried about in that interaction at that point? If I won't tell you exactly what's really going on and what you need, because I'm afraid you're going to leave, what is my motivation at that point? Am I motivated by personal conviction, belief, or duty? No, I'm motivated by minimally personal gain, or in this case, potential loss. I want to make sure you don't leave my practice. I want to make sure you don't run away. And I'm not saying this in a negative way, folks. I'm not trying to, indict anybody's attitude or opinion, but you're trying to make sure that you don't lose. As opposed to looking at it from the perspective of, you're the doctor. What is your responsibility and duty to a patient? Your responsibility and duty is to get them well. So they have, these 10 problems going on. Well, isn't it your job at that point to tell them they have those 10 problems going on? Absolutely. Here's what's going on with you. This is what I found. And obviously you want to be in good communication with them, etc. But if that's really shining through, they see that. Now look, a very small percentage of people are going to make you wrong for telling them what you found. In which case, that's good. Then they tell you who doesn't belong in your practice before you've actually started drilling on any teeth. It's very, very easy. If someone really gets upset with me for telling them, look, this is what's going on with you, and they just won't come off of it. And I want to be clear about this because sometimes people are a bit shocked, they can't believe it, and then they get over it and they get into communication. Other people are just going to continuously make you wrong and try to get you to do things you shouldn't do, okay? That's just the type of patient you don't want to treat because it doesn't fit your MO, how you want to practice dentistry. You can't help everybody, unfortunately. You can try your darndest to, but you can't. So that's the difference. If you're worried about what's going to happen with this person based on what you say because of the truth of what you found, then where are you on the motivation scale at that point? That's not duty. That's not personal conviction. It's personal gain. And again, I'm not saying that to give you a hard time. I'm just trying to point this up because it sneaks up on you. It's not like you're sitting in front of this patient going, ooh, let me see what kind of fee I can get out of this person. I don't know, maybe some people do that, in which case they're motivated by money. I don't know if you've ever had this. Have you ever been sold by somebody who was only motivated by money? Like that's all they wanted. They just wanted money. You could tell. And I use car dealers as a example, and I don't mean to give them that hard of a time, but I've just had some experiences before. And you walk in, and it's not, Jeff, what are you looking for? What do you need a car for? I mean, obviously we need a car, but what are you trying to use it for? Is it for your family? Is it for yourself? Is it a daily driver? Like, what is this car all about? If that was the case, then I could go, well, I need this, 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 and this. Then go, oh, well, this is the right car for you. Well, then because what did I come to the car dealership for? Where was I on the scale of motivation? I'm a personal gain. I want something for myself. So if that person plays into my personal gain, everything works out great. If it's all about they just want money, and you can tell when you've been sold by somebody like that, it's like, well, you really need this, but they're trying to sell you that because they want the bigger, fatter commission. Well, we have an instant barrier between the two of us because unless I walked into that car dealership that morning, if that was my aim when I woke up that morning, I want to go overpay for a car so some car salesperson makes a ton of money. If that was my motivation, then we'd be on the same page. But it's not. I'm there for myself. So if that person is feeding that, it works out great. If it's all about what is in it for them, I'm going to instantly have, what do the kids say today? It's the ick or whatever. It's just not going to hit. I'm not going to click with this person. It's not going to go well because they are not looking out for me. They're looking out for themselves. All right? So he goes on in this article. He says, an organization must flow out service, help, wisdom, useful data. And I want to stop there for a second. So think about what you do. You do dentistry, you provide information. This is home care. This is how you do it. You help people, information they can actually use to improve their lives. That's what your organization flows out. All right? So he goes on. I'll read that again. An organization must flow out service, help, wisdom, useful data. These strengthen personal conviction and result in personal gain for the public. Money, therefore, flows back as a means of keeping things going. As you will see in the above scale, money is junior to personal conviction and personal gain, and is so dominated by them or vanishes when personal conviction or personal gain are absent. Money flows poorly when motivated only by money. This kind of, I'll stop here, this lends itself to these examples we were just going over, right? So you're flowing out all this help and this service as a dental practice. All right. This makes me as a patient, the more I learn, the more information I get, the more wins I'm having. You know, I came in, you cleaned up my oral health, you've given me good home care instructions, you've very gently ensured that I adhere to them, not without becoming like a real problem, but you've made sure I've adhered to them. Maybe the first cleaning I came back for, you're like, dude, you're not doing a good job, and you handled me on that. Your hygienist did a good job. You did great restorative work, and you keep me going, and I'm seeing wins. My teeth look better. I'm not having problems. My exams, my pocketings, improving as I'm coming in. Maybe I had to get some scaling and root planning. Well, then I flip from personal gain to personal conviction. I have to keep coming in because I believe this is an important thing to do. Whereas, and then as a result of that, I make sure that, of course, I keep paying for stuff because I need you to stay there because you've actually helped me survive better. Do you see? It's kind of an interesting take when you look at it that way. He goes further. The public understands that an organization must have money to keep the wheels going. They look on anyone using such wisdom and technology only for money with a kind of horror. Now, this one's interesting. So if your office was all about money, and you've had this same reaction to this too as a doctor. I know I've had this reaction too. You ever seen a doctor get up on stage or talk somewhere or whatever? Oh man, you get us some money from patients, and this is the money. Let's get the money. Money. And it's not about the patients, and it just doesn't hit right. It kind of makes you feel like something's wrong with this. Well, why is that? Right? Because you don't want to necessarily associate money with healthcare. There's like some reason we don't like to do that because this is a little different than me going and buying an iPhone. This is actually something we're putting in my body. So yeah, it doesn't matter if it's expensive, but it's the fact that you're doing something that's going to improve my quality of life transcends money to a degree. Do you see? So when people get totally focused on the money, it tends to not feel right. That's why, I've seen it where people learn about statistics and they sit and they focus on statistics. There's nothing wrong with having statistics and using them, obviously. But when that becomes the sole focus, it's just stats. What's the collections? What's this? What's that? It starts to become a bit of a problem because instead of looking at what that statistic is actually representing, they're just focusing on the number. Like I could look at a day sheet and look at, $7,800. That's our collections today or our production today. But that doesn't necessarily tell me what we actually did. The more important thing is what we did that amounted to that. If I see a practice that's producing a lot of money, that means they're helping a lot of patients. It's a little bit different of an attitude. I mean, to that end, and this is something Sabri has done. You guys all know Sabri from she's been on a number of episodes now. And I've done it too. I've had a client who's just having a rough time. The office isn't going well. Stats aren't very good. And they're focused on we're not making our production goal or whatever. And I'll tell them, listen, drop the statistics for just a second. Forget about those for a second. Let's just focus on helping somebody. So the next patient that comes in, you don't care what treatment they need or don't need. We don't care about the stats today. You find out what's going on with them and you help them get that, whether that's an occlusal composite or an all-in-X case, whatever that is. Just help them. We don't care about the money right now. And it's funny, that tends to flip things around a little bit. What we've actually done, not only reoriented the person to their purpose, because most doctors, they're there to help. Most of the staff in your office are there to help. Of course, you make a living for it, but that's sort of a side effect of it, or not a side effect, side benefit of it, not a side effect. But you're there to help. So when you sit there with a huge focus on the number, you're not focusing on what that number represents. It was the $8,000 that this patient paid for veneers who needed to look good for their daughter's wedding and now cried when you delivered the veneers, and they're just so happy. Like, that's what that represents, or the implants you did on that patient who now has a higher quality of life. That's what that represents. So an office that is focused on helping people as their primary purpose, which also tends to fall on duty or personal conviction, will tend to make money because that's what the patients are there for, you see. And then this next section here is, to me, the kicker. This is where it sort of ties all this together. So I'll go back to what Mr. Hubbard says here. He says this: one is usually paid less than he is worth, excepting, of course, politicians, bankers, and thieves and con men. When people are paid more than they are worth, they don't last long. Therefore, to obtain operating funds, you have to give real service, real wisdom. You have to lead the field toward personal gain, like health and personal conviction. If you lead very well and actually deliver, you will be paid proportionately and will have security and longevity. Now, and then the next line is pure gold, but let me just kind of break this down here for a second. He uses this word field. What is your field? That's sort of the people around your practice, your patients, your patient base, and people connected to them. That's your field. So I'll read this part again just with that in mind. You have to lead the field toward personal gain, like health and personal conviction. If you lead very well and actually deliver, you will be paid proportionately and will have security and longevity. And then, as I said, this next line is gold. You have to be interested in what the clientele is interested in, not only in their pocketbooks. Now, I'm sure, look, I'm not accusing anybody of being that way. But, I know sometimes things get tough and you got to figure out how to pay bills or whatever. But the point I'm trying to make here, if I were to look at the application of this whole thing, especially with that particular thing, is, again, I want to match up with, if I have somebody come in and if I'm selling, what's the first thing I'm going to find out after the pleasantries? I've gotten to know them. Hi, I'm Jeff, and they're them. Okay, good. I want to find out, how can I help you? What is it that you are looking to achieve or attain? Because I am there to serve. That's why I'm there. Now, there may be cases. Let's take a dental example. So I come into your practice and you go, well, Jeff, how can I help you? What is it that you're looking to attain? Not just maybe I'm in pain, I want to get out of pain, but what is it you're looking to attain dentally? I go, well, I grind at night and, this one tooth hurts and I don't like how my smile looks. I actually like my smile currently, but whatever. Anyway, I don't like how my smile looks and blah, blah, blah. You go, okay, good. And then you figure out, so then you go, good, I'm going to do a full thorough exam and we're going to figure out how to sort all of those problems out for you to the best of our ability here, right? And see what we can do. So you do your full examination. You go, good. So here's the goal we're going for. We're trying to achieve this over here. So now here's what we have to do in order to attain that goal. Some of this stuff I'll be thinking with. Maybe I came in wanting veneers or I came in wanting Invisalign or something like this. Some of this I might not be thinking with. I have perio. You really don't want to touch the teeth till you do some type of periodontal therapy, you see? But if it's all framed up against what I'm trying to attain, like, look, this is something you didn't know. I don't know if you remember, we were calling off those numbers, when they were sticking that little probe in your gums. Well, here's what that means. And this is why I have to do this first. And I go, well, why can't we just do the veneers first, doc, or the crowns first? You go, well, no, that would sort of like be having like a fence. And, we're painting the fence and fixing the planks, but the fence isn't really anchored in the ground very well. So we need to fix that, right? Or potentially could fall out, whatever. Again, however you want to communicate it. But the point being is, we're framing everything around what am I trying to achieve as the patient, right, for my personal gain. And that, as Mr. Hubbard says here, you have to be interested in what the clientele is interested in. That's what I'm interested in. If you come to me and you go, Jeff, here's the problem. So look, I'm doing $150,000 a month and I'm only netting 20%. And I would like to net at least $500,000 a year because if I did, I'd be able to do this, 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 and this. And I only want to work till I'm 55 and blah, blah. You lay it all out for me. And I go, okay, good. So I would look at your situation. I go, all right, so here's what we do. We do this, 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 and this. I'm going to have to train you as an executive, blah, blah, blah. Like that's basically the simplicity of sales. I'm just feeding because that's what I exist for. I'm here to serve you to help you achieve your goal. That's what my business exists for. It's a service business. Same thing with you. You are there to get me healthy as a patient. Now, of course, maybe I have some aesthetic goals, but you also have, function goals and health goals associated with my mouth too, which the aesthetic isn't going to really matter if I have my functions messed up or I have active disease. So if you're framing it from that perspective, how can you help the person? Sales becomes super, super easy. Super easy. And then, of course, you're operating at a bare minimum personal conviction, which, you're going to have as a dentist anyway, but I would hope more duty. To me, that line was gold. That line changed how I approach things. Because instead of me worrying about, okay, how do I do this? How do I close this person? Oh my gosh, maybe they don't like when I say this. Instead, it was, okay, what's going on with this person? What do you need? How can I help you? And that's the way I approach it all the time. And keep in mind, too, some of these people may not be educated as patients. I know I keep flipping back to like my own personal experience and a dental experience, but they don't know. They're not educated dentally. They're just there to fix that gap in their front teeth, but they don't know they have all these other problems going on. So, but those problems will prevent them from achieving their goal, at least long term, or they may prevent them from achieving a goal that they have naturally that they haven't voiced. Like maybe I come to you and I go, I don't like this gap in my teeth, but then I want to keep my teeth for the rest of my life and I have active disease. Well, okay, we're still going to fix the gap. That's cool. That's why we always say don't ignore the chief complaint. But then we're also, we have to take a look at, maybe I want to keep, do you want to keep your teeth? Yeah, of course I want to keep my teeth. I didn't think I'd have to say that. That's kind of a given. So you get the point. There's things you're going to have to educate patients on as opposed to just going, oh, well, that patient doesn't know that. Well, they know how to rebuild a transmission. They know how to install a pool. They know how to, win a legal case. But yeah, they don't know how to do dentistry. That's why they came to you. So this is the point. There's certain things that they'll be aware of and certain things that they won't be. It's your job to ensure that they know both. All right. Then he concludes the article with these last 2 points here. He says, solvency, for the sake of solvency, cannot be achieved because one is not paid only because he is solvent. One is paid for strengthening and carrying out the service one is paid for. Some muddle-headed misinterpretation of this is not only possible, but probable. If money is a poor motivation, then obviously, someone may say, one should reduce prices or never make any charge at all. But that solution we find is so bad that people who do not contribute money and get free service do not, in fact, accept it and can't have it. Further, the whole service would vanish and cease to exist. A couple of interesting points here, right? So, yeah, someone could look at this and go, oh, well, money's a low motivation, so we shouldn't make money. No, you should make lots of money. That isn't the point, but you're making lots of money because you're delivering really good service and doing a good job. That's why you're making lots of money, not just because you're getting money. So, no, the answer is not to collect money. That isn't the point. Someone could get that in their mind, and that is absolutely not correct. And he mentions this line here, but that solution we find is so bad that people who do not contribute money and get free service do not, in fact, accept it and can't have it. It's just something I've noticed over the years. You've probably noticed it. I had a friend of mine, dentist, he was explaining it to his staff as well. He wanted to point out, like, look, if you look at our accounts receivable, you'll notice that patients who have 90-day and over balances usually don't show up for their recall appointments or aren't even scheduled at all. Well, why? Because they are not, they haven't paid for what they've already gotten, so therefore they don't show up. And he got his staff to think more from the perspective of like, look, the reason I want you to collect the money, yeah, of course we need the money. It pays the bills and it helps pay the staff, etc., right? But when somebody gets something for free, it's like it doesn't belong to them. Kind of interesting. Like if I come to your office, like let's look at charity for a second. I think charity is super cool. I love giving to charity. I love helping charity. And usually the recipient of charity usually wants to not have to receive charity as quickly as possible. So they want to, they accept it, however they accept it, but they vow one day to not be in that position. And I respect that, okay? Some people fall on hard times. It happens, right? But I don't mind charity when I am consciously giving. I don't enjoy, enforced charity. So you do a root canal on a patient and they just don't pay you. That's enforced charity. If you take a look, you did a service that was worth whatever it was worth, $1,200, $1,300, and they just didn't pay. That's enforced charity. And what's funny, you'll notice when you give somebody something that they don't have to exchange for, this happens with kids all the time. There's parents who came up hard, didn't go well, so they're like, I'm going to give my kid everything. But they don't force the kid to actually maintain a degree of exchange with the parents, right? Like they're doing something for what they're receiving. That's when they start to have problems with the kid, you see, because they're giving and not having to actually do anything in return for it. Subject of a whole other episode. We'll get into it. It's on the subject of exchange because it actually applies to your business, but I just wanted to point that line out. All right, so then he ends off with this. No, the solution is to charge whatever the traffic will bear because one serves the motivations of personal gain and personal conviction, but in charging for it, deliver. Delivery, then, is really more important than payment to the public. Delivery, then, is really more important than payment to the public. Now, look, this may or may not be an issue, but I just want to throw this out there, and I'll go back to wrapping this thing up. But, there's a bit of a wrong-headed setup in dentistry in a sense. What we call production, we're always looking to produce, right? Production. What is production? It's a charge. It's when we prep a case. It's when we start a case. So production gets prioritized on a schedule, and I understand that, and I talk about that because it's important, right? But for a patient, if I come into your practice and you're producing 4 veneers, you're prepping 4 veneers, that looks great on your day sheet. You charge maybe, I don't know, whatever you charge, $1,500, $2,000 a veneer, so you got $6,000 to $8,000 on your day sheet. I walk out with 4 acrylic molded fake front teeth that I'm freaked out about losing, that they may slip out, or I'm going to bite something wrong, and I can't really eat normally until you deliver the permanent veneers. So for you, the office, it's great. For me, it's sort of like, I can't wait till these permanent veneers go in. That's going to make life a lot easier. So the big punchline for me, the big reveal, the exciting part for me is not the prep appointment where I'm getting my shot and you're drilling. It's when you deliver the final restoration. That's when this is when I'm excited. I get my veneers, or you restore that implant finally, or whatever it is. So you got to keep that in mind. Only when you're doing your schedule is, yes, I understand that how dentistry is built, we're focused on production, but keep in mind for the patient, it's the delivery appointment that's the big deal. So you want to make sure, because I've seen it happen from time to time where someone bumps a delivery appointment, for some crowns or whatever because there's a big, juicy, productive procedure. I personally would never do that. Only because, to me, that's the one. The patient's not going to refer to me because they're walking around in 4 fake acrylic veneers. They're going to walk around with beautiful front teeth now. That's the person who's going to refer. It's also, I now have finished the whole cycle of production at that point. That person is a product of my office. So we're done, right? Anyway, but it's interesting that he mentions that right here, and I'll pick up that line again. Delivery, then, is really more important than payment to the public. Mr. Hubbard goes on. He says, thus, an organization must deliver services that definitely serve personal gain and personal conviction. Given normal promotion of these services and good backup of the promotion, finance ceases to be a vital point. The organization makes money, is solvent, and well supported. Give good promotion and service, and your price list is taken for granted. Direct, positive, corrective interest in all service flubs or failures is itself good promotion. Now, let's take that last line for a second. Direct, positive, corrective interest in all service flubs or failures is itself good promotion. So look, we're all humans. I've yet to meet a perfect human being. Not that when I've met, they just don't exist. So if I'm focused on delivering and doing a good job, and the entire team is looking at it that way, we're all focused on delivery and doing a good job, there's still going to be mess ups. Somebody's going to mess up. Someone's going to screw up. So I tend to grab those things really fast. I've gotten emails from clients directly where, hey, this person didn't call me back, and we're really good about that stuff, but it happens occasionally. I respond immediately. I jump all over it, and I handle it because, to me, that's important. I'm not thinking with, this is a good way to promote to this client. It's, no, I'm supposed to serve this client and help this client. That's why I'm here. That's why they came to me. They gave me that trust, so I have to, do it. It's my duty to do this. You'll find that's a huge source of promotion. I've actually found when I've done that with people, not intended, by the way, this wasn't why I did it. I did it because it was important to me that the person wasn't, received the product intact, so to speak. That in and of itself is promotion. The only time it's going to be a problem is if, let's say, some patient showed up and their lab case wasn't back and the front desk screwed up and didn't reschedule them or something, right? The patient's upset. And you just address it head on. Like, we screwed up. Again, let's be clear, we're talking about healthcare here. So if there's some clinical thing and you get a letter from a patient, that's your malpractice carrier and attorney. So don't listen to me on that regard. I'm not a lawyer, okay? But if it's something silly like that, you're like, your case wasn't back or whatever, I would just fess up, own it. I apologize. How do I make this right with you? How do I make it right? Might have some gift certificates laying around for, a couple bucks off at dinner or something like this. Something to alleviate that stuff, but I would jump over it and handle it as quickly as possible. Look, I just spoke to the lab. They're going to have to hear tomorrow. And, we close at 2:00 usually. And, I normally, you can't come until 3. I know tomorrow we normally close at 2. I'm going to stay at after 2 to actually do this with you and just take care of this. That can go a long way in sorting things out, not only with that thing, but, with that particular issue, but also in making your patients happier to be patients in your practice. Anyway, so that's the whole thing here, right? It's how you approach this stuff. It's the attitude. It's where you reside on the scale of motivation, right? Where you reside, where you live with regards to the scale of motivation. If you're operating at personal conviction, or even better, in my opinion, duty, it's your job, your responsibility to get your patients healthy. You'll take responsibility. You'll do your darndest. Life gets very simple. Practice production becomes very simple. Sales becomes a heck of a lot simpler. And I'll add one little caveat. Go all out for your patients. Do everything you can possibly do to help them. All right? But don't lose yourself in that one person who pretends to want your help and eats up all this time and doesn't appreciate it when you have hundreds, if not thousands of people who really do appreciate what you do. Focus on those and you'll definitely win. Anyway, that's all I have for you on this week. I have that link to the MGE Communication and Sales Seminars. Definitely check those out for 2026 on the episode webpage. And don't forget, RX 2025. You can get the for the 2025 prices. I do hope this helps, folks. Again, this is airing. I don't know the exact air date, so if it's not New Year's yet, I wish you a future Happy New Year's. If it's already the New Year, Happy New Year. If you want to know more about MGE, you can find us online at mgeonline.com or call us at 800-640-1140. Folks, have a great week, and we will see you at the next episode.